Earlier this week, in a lot of places, there was news involving the coronavirus. And so I decided to do a little bit of research here and there about the information I was seeing. Uh, Interestingly enough, during that period, a friend of mine, Elliot, who currently lives in China, has been there for the last 2 years, I believe, contacted me, and we had done a podcast before. And he said, "Hey, I would love to get on and just kind of share with people about what's going on with coronavirus, specifically here in China." And I thought that was a great opportunity for people specifically to hear from sort of close to ground zero, boots on the ground type of experience of what a civilian is doing and experiencing from the beginning point of the virus. So we had an impromptu sort of conversation, and I want to present that to you today. And I hope that the information that is presented is worthy and worthwhile to you to digest and kind of understand some of the potential that could happen in different places. Neither he nor I are medical professionals, but what we're basically having a conversation about is how the response has been in China and what we think may possibly happen in other places. And hopefully this is something that we can find a resolution to, and that the number of casualties due to this virus remains minimal and low. So we didn't really have a true intro. It was just really a conversation for this. And with that, I would like to thank you for continually listening to this, as it's brought to you to educate and inform. And let's go. I remember when we talked last time was a couple months ago, like talk. I mean, we obviously talked in between. And I know you were mentioning because we actually talked in Facebook, and you were saying like you were like quarantined, which was interesting. And it just, I didn't think, I thought it was going to be something that was like contained in, sort of where it was. And then I saw the numbers. I'm like, holy cow, dude. So
Yeah,
like,
that
go ahead.
that's the problem with something being dormant for 2 weeks. You're not showing any symptoms, but yet people can still catch it.
And that's that, like, so what, like, what exactly happened, like, for you? Like, because I know you all got quarantined, and you said you couldn't go back to like the school. You worked from home. So what exactly did they do?
Well, it started around the second week of Chinese New Year. So this was around maybe January 18th was when we were told that our school was going to be canceled for a little bit. And then after that, we were told that we needed to stay in our apartments and we couldn't leave for, except to get groceries and things like that, which was about every 2 days. We had a sign-in sheet at first, and then once the government got things going, we had an app that we could use to kind of mark that, yes, we were safe, we weren't safe, or we needed to get immediate help. And when that started to happen with the app and everything, the quarantine wasn't so bad because people could tell that you were okay or you weren't okay. But for about 2 weeks before that got up and running, everyone was pretty much could only leave just to get groceries. And when they did leave, it was you had to have your masks on or you were put in jail.
Really? So were people really put in jail?
Well, I mean, yes.
Jeez, wow. So
But
like, did they?
that's that. Well, hang on. But before saying that, though, most people did have masks, and they genuinely did not want this to get any worse. Uh, we had gotten news about Wuhan and what had happened there, and everyone was really supportive of trying to get Wuhan better and well. And so, that was there, but normally, most of the time, people were very observant and respectful for it.
So like, how I mean, even with that, you sort of being respectful, I mean, that feels like, well, I mean, I get it in sort of a sort of grand community sense, but at the same time, like to think, if I don't have this on, I'm going to jail. Is It feels extreme. Like, how far is Wuhan from where you are?
I do not know offhand. Someone said it was about maybe 90 kilometers, but like I said, I can't give you an exact number.
And so, so what's sort of the status of school now? Is it canceled for the year, or like, is it finished? What's the status for that?
Oh, our school is continuing. We were supposed to be back February 8th, but they extended it a little bit longer. Okay, not. Let's see. Let me get this right. Yeah, we were supposed to be back on February 10th. They pushed school back a week to figure out how to do a distance learning class. Once we were able to utilize some online platforms, we then began to have classes again. So really, it only set us back 1 week. We've been doing classes through online apps, distant learning programs, and it's been really successful.
So, do you know of, or have you been told of, like, any students or any of the faculty who have either come in contact with or contracted the virus during sort of the quarantine period?
I have not. As far as I know, everyone at my school has been doing well and healthy. There have been no cases reported of, like I said, anyone from our school community.
And I know you mentioned the principal. He was traveling and he got quarantined. Is that right? He got quarantined in another country, and they either wouldn't let him in or wouldn't let him back in. Is that right?
Well, he had had a sinus infection when he was coming from Ningbo to the Philippines, and this was at the beginning when it happened. And so he was quarantined for about 2 weeks just as a little extra precaution. But he's fine now. He's back in Ningbo.
So, like, what's been the sort of, I guess, the news that's been local about, like, the status of the virus and like the containment?
Well, this is great news. I'm glad you asked that. Ningbo and China right now has hit its peak and is actually it's starting to go down. So cases are not coming up as frequently. Where I live, we've not seen any new cases for the past few days, and so people are very positive that things are going to go back to normal. What China is worried about is that people are coming into the country that do have the coronavirus right now, and it might show a little resurgence. And so the same precautions that they took at the beginning with everyone in the country, they're now taking that into, they're now applying that for people who are coming in. So when you come in, if you're an educator or anybody, expect to be quarantined for about 14 weeks to make sure that you don't have any symptoms. During that quarantine time, you need to report your temperature, let the people at your apartment know that you're fine and healthy. And after that 14 period, if nothing comes up, then you're free to go about with that health card that I had mentioned earlier.
Okay, so one thing that intrigued me was I saw in the news there was once the virus was identified and people were quarantined, it showed the Chinese government built the hospital in, like, record time. I don't know if it was like a week, but it was really fast. And I was like, that's amazing. And then there was news in the United States or whatever and other places, like, wow, how did they build it that fast? And it actually lauded the Chinese government for, sort of uh, handling the situation expeditiously. What was sort of your experience with seeing something like that happen, or what did you see?
That was a great matter of national pride, and it was also gave a lot of hope to people in Wuhan who were quarantined. Uh, the, as the crews were building the hospitals, they were showing it on live 24-hour feed. And so everybody, would kind of joke and laugh and cheer them on as they were working. And everyone had certain construction workers that they were rallying towards, and say, hey, go lift that concrete bag or pour that cement, or yeah, you do that, way to work that crane. Just cheering them on, and encouraging them to work and get the hospital done.
What's amazing is the sort of work ethic that comes with that. I mean, I think people globally think the work ethic that people in China have is sort of second to none. But like that was like the epitome of getting it done. So, I mean, in some cases, I can understand where some people feel if the Chinese workers and the manufacturers can't produce at the same level, it will have sort of a market disruption. And for that, like, uh, it's amazing to me because if they've set that bar, I mean, do you think that creates a standard for them for other projects to get things done and to respond to other sort of maybe crisis situations in the same way?
Yes, they are, or China's the second largest economy in the world, and they want to keep things going as seamlessly as possible. And so when viruses, plagues, or incidents like that happen, they have a very fast response because they don't want it spreading and they want to just keep business as usual.
If we follow the social media medical doctors, the coronavirus is nothing more than the flu. And so, like, what is the information you've received sort of on the ground since I'm guessing based on the news it originated in China of what exactly the coronavirus is and how does like someone know if they have it or what they may have symptoms for it?
I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't really uh, give that information out as 100% sure. But I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I've heard it's symptomatics comes on. The symptoms come on like the flu. Uh, what's recognizable is a high temperature, and so that's what everyone's been told to watch out for. If you have a high temperature, cough, uh, you might want to just get checked and make sure that it's not corona or the COVID-19.
So, like, I know, for instance, now in like obviously in recent news, a lot of social and entertainment events have been canceled in different places because of the virus. Has that happened in China, where like maybe like sporting events, concerts, things like that, public gatherings have been canceled as well?
Yes, during that at the beginning when the quarantine was going on, we were advised, well, not, yeah, I guess advised to not be in public places. If we were in public places, to limit uh, the groups of people to maybe about two or three at the most. Uh, at the start of it, there were a few events that were canceled. I had to cancel an event myself, and that happens. Would you want to have a big loss or a small loss? Is how you look at it.
Yeah, and you know the thing that I think is interesting is because a lot of people are looking at like, well, what will they do now? Now that many sort of social gatherings or entertainment type things are being canceled. Like, what have you done during your quarantine period to sort of I guess be social or to pass your time or to be productive?
Uh, a lot of online activities. I'll check social media. I'll do lesson plans and prepare for my classes online. I'll meet with students through Zoom. For me, it's not been too stressful because I'm used to working and have a very good second life online.
Okay, and you know that's cool. It just I think it's really interesting that just culturally, many people don't really I think outside of China understand like what social life is like in China. So, do you feel like it's a significant difference for you now compared to before the virus? Because the virus what first showed up what late December, January, something like that.
Mm, I'm trying to think. That's a really good question. It's been difficult not being able to meet with coworkers face to face and going to school and having that school, camaraderie and that physicalness to it. The online shift has been really interesting. as soon as the quarantine was over, we were back to business as usual in terms of social life, meeting friends for board games, activities at home, and things like that. But as far as outside events, I've really missed participating in ultimate frisbee, and dining is another thing I've really missed. All of the restaurants have had to do carry out services only, and so they don't let people dine in, but they're starting to open up now and allowing people to dine in. But when everything was really bad, all those services were stopped, including takeaway food was stopped as well. People started, going to grocery stores during the windows of time they could leave and were cooking at home.
So, what did that look like on the ground? I guess to have a quarantine, like if they're allowing specific times for people to travel and
Well,
go to like grocery stores.
if you can imagine, China is a very, very heavily populated country. You'd go out on the streets and it would be like a ghost town. I'm sure if you search online, you can find pictures of people who've been here taking the just most eeriest, ghostly pictures you've ever seen of streets being completely empty, restaurants and like big communal centers just with no one there. Grocery stores were the same way. Everyone kind of staggered when they went in, when they went out. And so, it was just very weird. You could walk down the streets and not see any cars.
So how did that work? Like, did they like allow sort of commuting or driving or anything like that? Or what kind of travel restrictions were there? Because I'm guessing they probably didn't allow people to go from like city to city or anything like that as well.
Uh, you could go from cities to city, but they limited the amount of uh, times that the buses and trains normally went. Normally, they'd go throughout the day, but I was told that they just reduced them down to maybe about 3 or 4 times. Uh, during when everything was going on, I'd had a roommate, and he had to take care of some visa work in Shanghai, and he said when he got to the train station, there was just hardly anybody there. The only people that were there for that train, and that was it.
And I know for instance, I've from what I've seen, it's that they say that this virus specifically affects like older people and people with like sort of I guess frail immune systems. Is that basically who have been reported where you are? Is the I guess the sort of I don't want to use casualties, but I guess casualties is maybe the correct word, or the virus carriers, so to speak. Are those the people who have been sort of affected the most, as far as you know?
But as far as I know, the virus really doesn't discriminate. I mean, if you come in contact with it, there's going to be a good chance you catch it. Uh, as far as fatalities and those types of things, it's kind of the older, the elderly, like you said, have been the ones who have died from it, and those who have weak immune systems. But once again, that's what I've heard. I have got no medical say in it.
No, and I understand. And the thing about it is that's why it's sort of like, well, I choose I often try to choose my questions to be as sort of open ended as possible, because it's not necessarily speaking on authority for the virus itself. It's speaking on like being sort of that firsthand account of what's going on. Because I'm just imagining in my mind, imagining being in a city, because I've been to China, I've been to Beijing and Shanghai and Xi'an, and I can just imagine, for instance, in the mornings, and I don't know, sort of where you live location wise. In the mornings in the squares, you would see groups of people exercising, and imagining just sort of stone cold silence probably kind of zaps some of the energy out of the people. What do you feel like the morale has been, or the energy of the people where you are?
I'd say very positive. They want things to be back to normal. They really want to move forward with this. It was, you hear firecrackers going on. in terms of like celebrations when you get news that the virus is in decline.
Well,
And yep, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
What else we're going to say? And you do get very positive vibes when you hear about new restaurants opening up and people coming back. Actually, uh, last week, a lot of my coworkers began coming back because we're hoping that we can have seventh through 12th grade back in school on the 23rd of March, but we're just kind of waiting to see if the government gives us the green light for that or not. And so fingers crossed that'll happen. We'll be back in the classroom.
And so that's sort of another question because they have to, I would guess they have to kind of phase in sort of going back in the public places or doing sort of public gatherings. And so is it something where maybe your school is thinking about doing maybe hybrid classes for a while, where you have one day you're there, one day you're not, or something like that, to sort of slowly phase back in sort of publicly gathering? Or do you have any idea what they're going to do as far as that?
I think it's going to be staged or staggered. We'll have seventh through 12th grade come in first, as well as all of the faculty. And then once there gets to be a good routine and we are allowed to have more grade levels in, then we'll bring in the elementary, and lastly, we'll bring in the PK, pre-K.
And so how quickly was the or how quick, based on your information, was the response to this by the Chinese government or authorities to deal sort of with this issue? Because what we see is that other places have handled this situation in a variety of different ways. There's views of how the South Koreans have handled it, and how they had an immediate, like, sort of, they had a high number and then they immediately kind of reacted to it, and they've contained it, so to speak, based on news. And then you hear about the sort of the Italian response, which I guess are sort of polar opposites, where they had only a few and then it exploded in 20 or so days, and then they basically have like quarantined their entire country. What has been sort of, I guess, your opinion of how the government has handled it so far?
I think the government has done a wonderful job as of late with how they've done it at the beginning. Unfortunately, the Wuhan province, the governors who were there did not do such a good job. And this is not me saying this. This was reported, and the governors who were in the country at the time have all been replaced. One of the lead members who did replace the government was a former, uh, I guess, representative or head figure in Shanghai. He began taking over in Wuhan, and when that happened, things started to go very well. What the government's done with the quarantine, coming up with the app system, has been very good. It's a wonderful way to just monitor and make sure everyone's fine and healthy. If they're not healthy, then they have a way to know that, hey, this person's not well. We might need to go see how they're doing and be able to take care of the situation from there. But overall, I feel that they've done a really good job with keeping the spread down to the places that are outside of Wuhan, and or should be commended for kind of showing other countries just what it takes to keep this virus from spreading.
And what's interesting to me is that I think this, based on just sort of my perspective, I feel like this virus has done something specific that was sort of we all were leading to in sort of industry anyways, was sort of remote work and automation. And so how seamless was it, or how easy was it to transition from sort of that face-to-face organic traditional work style to the remote sort of automated work style? Was that really easy? Did they handle that fairly well?
I believe so. I really think my school did a very good job with it. The Georgia School in Ningbo did a great job being able to get the programs that were needed to help facilitate the online learning experience. But with any situation, when you first go into it, everyone says, "Oh, we've got great technology. We use the internet very well." In a situation like this, it's a very good stress test to see just how well you are capable of going fully digital if you need to. And at the beginning, yeah, there were some problems. We have a great IT crew who came in and were working with people. A lot of Zoom chats, conference calls, and when everyone felt comfortable with it, it moved on very well. One of the things that we had mentioned in a meeting last week, or sorry, earlier this week, was being sensitive to what's going on. You've got kids who aren't used to uh, regulating school when they don't have teachers or anyone else to kind of be like, "Hey, Johnny, you need to do this." So it took the students a little while to realize that, okay, we're in this situation. We need to put our best effort into it, and the teachers needed to kind of realize that, hey, the kids are in a scary place. I mean, they've just been told they can't go to school, they can't be with their friends, and so you had to really use kindness in working with the kids and letting them know it's going to be okay. We can get through this together. Instead of saying, "Hey, you've not turned this assignment. Why don't you do it now?" You kind of go around it by saying, "Well, when you can get the assignment into me, get the assignment into me. I understand you're not at home. You might be somewhere else, and we're here to support you. So when you can get it in, get it in. We're just glad that you're here and taking part."
And so that's an interesting dynamic to sort of address as well. I mean, though you don't necessarily have that direct contact with students, did you get sort of any feel or did you get any information about like the children and their families that were quarantined and like how the parents did their work? Like how did they go to work or earn money or anything like that? And for the younger children, like you said, you have 7 through 12 returning. Well, below for 6 and below, like what was sort of the process for that? Because I can tell those would be pretty different, just sort of on the cognitive level and the educational level. Like, were those? Do you have any information on that or how they were different?
With the younger kids, teachers were using Seesaw, and they were having the kids do their letters and drawing pictures, and they were uploading them to Seesaw. Uh, Great portfolios were being created that way. With the PK, what I had gotten to see, and this was really cute, the parents were with the kids, and the teachers were all together on a Zoom conference. And so I didn't really get to talk much with the PK teachers about what they were doing in those classes, but it was just nice to see that the parent teacher involvement. With the older kids, the classes are done through Zoom. They were done through OneNote. I also use Classcraft a lot to kind of help motivate my kids. It's Classcraft is it's a gamification platform where you can give them grades and help them to kind of see lessons and explore it in more of a game than no, more of a game. Let's see what else was there. Yeah, that's about it. We've used those very well to kind of help keep as close as a class culture together. We also use WeChat a lot. All the different specialty teachers, library, music, IT, PE, performing arts have WeChat groups as well as the homeroom teachers where they can talk and interact with the students on there. So if you're not familiar with WeChat, kind of imagine Facebook on steroids, basically. It's a super app.
I know I was actually going to ask that because then the next question is if so much stuff was pushed online, then like how did the sort of the internet function? Because I know that's like super heavy bandwidth being used. So were there periods of like slowdown or sort of freezing or anything like that?
Well, at the beginning, yes, there were a lot of hiccups and freezes and things like that, but over time, uh, the internet's gotten better. Things are able to connect quicker, and it's not as troublesome as it had been during the beginning of the outbreak.
And now, one thing that I've heard, and I don't know sort of firsthand, but I know I've heard that sort of internet in China is restricted for people, and so if that is so, is that one way that they've been able to sort of help sort of manage sort of the issues with bandwidth and sort of users?
I'm not really too sure as to how the internet restrictions have affected the bandwidth. I do know that when people are asked to be at home, that's kind of the go-to for entertainment. And so, regardless of there being restrictions or not, there's still going to be more people on there, you know, regardless of what content they're looking at online.
And so that's interesting because for instance, and I alluded to it a little earlier. Like, what do you, as far as you know, what are some things that people, I guess, you watch or use on the internet as far as like for entertainment? Because I mean, I guess I don't know if there's probably a version of Netflix or some kind of version of TV station sports streaming. So like, kind of for that, what's usual?
Well, there was a big spike in online games that had happened. Uh, Youku is kind of like the equivalent to YouTube here that people use a lot. Uh, what else is there that I can think of? TV, online internet TV. That's really about it. If you've got a large family or a group, a lot of people were playing board games, and that was really neat to see. Just taking it back to the table and socializing.
And it sounds like it sort of forces that family time, which I think is definitely probably cool. And there has been a shift away from it, where it looks like maybe the internet was specifically for work purposes. As far as like consumerism and stuff like that, do they have like, did they people use delivery services or anything like that? And for instance, for like working, because I know a lot of things are manufactured there. Do you know anything about the status of like the ability for people who work in that arena to go back to work and to produce things? Because for instance, there's I guess a rush for toilet paper, I don't know why, and hand sanitizer in the United States, as far as what I've seen. And I think the concern that came from that is that because it won't be able to be manufactured in China sort of in with regularity, that they needed to address that. So as far as like work, do you know like how the families been have been able to work?
I don't know offhand. I do know that the last 2 weeks they've seen a lot of people coming back to work as long as they have that. They're showing on their health app that they're green and they're healthy. A lot of work has been done online. As far as the factories and those types of things, I don't know about how soon they're coming on. But I will say one thing about things being closed and not working. During the time when it was very restrictive, uh, I'd used one of my days to go out and see a friend to play board games, and we'd ordered some food. As we were going out, I was in a rush. I didn't have my mask on, and I got in the food as I was coming back. I just kind of looked at my buddy and said, "Man, this air, it's really weird." And he looked at me and said, "Yeah, from the factories and everything being closed, the pollution's been at like a record low." And it was just kind of one of those oh moments that hit me.
Wow. And the thing is, I can remember that because when I was there, I remember one of the most significant things that stood out to me was when I was in the airplane landing in Beijing, that the the smog and sort of the sky being sort of a very interesting color, and I was just kind of shocked. So that is interesting as far as that goes. And so sort of with that, how has your family reacted to it? Because I know, like, obviously your family is far away. Well, and I think, no, you said your parents were coming there to work. Did they get the opportunity to do that?
Unfortunately not. Before leaving, my mother went in to have a health check, and they had found that she had early stages of breast cancer. Like, this is like at the most minimum you could have. So she got it in time, but they had to stay in the States for her to go through surgery and chemotherapy right now.
Oh wow, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, but I'm glad that they found it and they were able to address that. So what has that been like as far as connection for that?
Well, it's been, really good. Since I work at home now, I'm able to talk to my parents um, more frequently. I mean, not that work didn't stop me from doing that, but it was just more easy. I didn't have to worry about going back and forth and being tired from commuting, and so uh, yeah, I get to hear from them more. I've been catching up on my mom and her progression, and we've been kind of, telling each other, "Hey, wash your hands, make sure you're safe. How are you doing today? Do you have your mask?" So just bringing a little humor to the situation, but making sure that we're all taking it serious.
What I find interesting is the other thing about this, as far as like the public directions on how to handle this. It seems like it's just basic hygiene, which it kind of says something to me in terms of like what people were doing before. Like, so were you not hygienic before? Like, it just kind of begs the question of like, what were people doing? So maybe this was a necessary wake up call, you think?
Uh, I guess more for just kind of self monitoring your health. Uh, the U.S. has a very strong work ethic, and a lot of times what you'd see what happened is when people were sick, they would just go to work anyway. They knew that, well, if I can't make it to work, I'm not going to get paid this day. Um, so yes, it's kind of a wake up call to personal care and self monitoring. If you don't feel well, if you're sick, take that personal day, take that sick day. It's there for a reason. And if you're getting worse, I just saw recently that you could get a health, or you could get checked for the coronavirus, free in the States. So do that, take advantage of that, make sure that you're well. And if you're not, then hey, you just did your coworkers and everyone a favor by not spreading the virus to them.
And sort of comparing healthcare systems, so like, what would you say was sort of the best part of the healthcare sort of system that you, if you did get to experience it while you've been there during this situation?
Well, I've not had any tests done. I've not been symptomatic, but from what I've seen, it was the government's reassurance that we understand what's going on. Companies have paid at least that first month. I know when things were happening, they paid, they took care of their workers, and now it's not full wages, but they are getting paid reduced wages while they're still out if they can't make it in.
And as far as, like, you mentioned the app and having the app and saying that you're okay, have you heard of anything? Because when I hear about apps and computer stuff, especially for something like this, there's always the sort of smallest chance if someone can hack it or fabricate information. So what's sort of the security level, as far as you know, of people sort of having that, where they can say, oh well, I'm good, but they also haven't sort of like hacked into the system and like it affected the integrity of it?
Well, a lot of that's just self-monitoring, not so much as ha ha ha, I'm going to try to beat the system. You know, you've got everyone around you who's counting on you to be responsible, to take care of yourself and just be honest if something happens. So to answer your question honestly, I've not heard of any hacking cases, but from what I've seen, people are very good about just regulating it and self-monitoring.
So have people looked at this sort of situation like the normal flu or the other flus that sort of were uh, sort of going on in the world? Was that their response in general, or was it an actual heightened response?
I would say this was a heightened response. Once they were aware of how quickly it spread, and just yeah, once they were aware of how quickly it spread, they got to containing it very fast.
And that was like sneezing, coughing, handshakes, basically any mucous membranes, right?
I think it's an aerosol. So if anything airborne or goes into water, uh, comes in contact with your face, eyes, nose, there's a chance that you could have. I mean, there's a chance you could catch it.
And you mentioned sort of the food doing the delivery service. Did they have like other good stores like supermarkets and I guess maybe just clothing or you sort of your general items? Did they use delivery services to bring things to people?
They've got well, let's see, how did it go? At the beginning, a lot of the delivery places were shut down. But then once they started to have the companies do health checks for their employees, have their temperatures taken, sanitary precautions, then they were allowed to start doing the delivery services again, as well as the yeah, any delivery. We have a online store called Taobao, which is probably the equivalent to Amazon, yeah, Amazon or eBay. And anything you can imagine, you can get online. And so people were having clothes, groceries delivered, and that really helped kind of stop or not stop, but limit the human traffic that went between grocery stores and places in the cities.
And you mentioned something about traveling and where they were worried about sort of new people coming in the country and potentially sort of bringing, I guess, some sort of strain of the virus from somewhere else in. And so, like, has there been like, is there still, as far as you've heard, a lot of travel into China from other places?
um, hmm. I know the expats who were outside of China during the Chinese New Year holiday, uh, they're coming back into work, and so those going through it do need to be quarantined. But that's that's about what I've heard. I've not really heard of tourism or things like that coming into China.
You know, it's interesting talking about expats working there. I have a friend that was working in China, and they actually went back. I think they went back home, or they were traveling during the time during the Chinese New Year, and then the I guess the virus had sort of spread, and they basically eliminated their job because of just sort of the situation. Have you heard about other people going through situations like that where their job was eliminated because of the the virus?
Personally, no, but I have read about it, and unfortunately, I've also heard about uh, im- uh, people not getting paid. Now, if they are listening and they are in that situation where they're not getting paid, you can find a Chinese lawyer and you can take that to court, and your employers are required to pay you. So if you feel that, I'm not going to get paid, this isn't going to happen, I'm not going to win, yeah, you are. You need to just get a lawyer and lawyer up.
Well, I mean, and I mean, I guess you can kind of expect that from anywhere because businesses care about sort of their bottom line and their ability to sort of pay their own bills. So, are there any sort of specific points or any ideas or messages you would convey to someone anywhere else if they see sort of uh, something coming, either maybe with a quarantine or something dealing with sort of an outbreak of the virus?
Hmm. What's the expression? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of first aid or first care. Just kind of, have something in place. Be prepared. You know, at at the Georgia School in Ingbo, we had all of the online resources there. They were being used, but they weren't being used at full capacity, I guess is the way you could describe it. And so when we did need to use them extensively, there were some leaks that came out of that stress test, and which was great for us because now we fixed those. We have great data showing how we've you know worked and made those improvements. And just for people in education or people just anywhere who have that capability to do online, it wouldn't hurt just to have maybe a soft opening. Say, hey, why don't, like you were saying with hybrid, uh, every other day, let's just work at home and see how this works. We'll come into work, we'll have a meeting the next day, talk about the experience and find out, well, this worked, this didn't work. All right, how can we make this better? But, just prepare for it in case it needs to go that way.